You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome to another episode of Diakonia, a call to service. Diakonia is the Greek word for service and also the root word for deacon. I'm Deacon James Norman, Vicar for Deacons with the Archdiocese of Chicago, and blessed to serve at Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica on the west side of Chicago. Delighted to be with you here today. And joining me as always is Deacon Dave Brinsick. How are you, Dave?
Jim, very well. Welcome.
Dave is the Associate Director for the Permanent Diaconate Office. We're delighted today to have with us the Dean of the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization, the new Dean of the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization. Ted Wampum is here with us. We're going to learn a little bit more about his background, learn of what's going on at the University of St. Mary of the Lake with the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization, and how it impacts us all and creates a foundation for a renewed church in the Archdiocese of Chicago. How are you, Ted?
Doing very well, thank you.
Delighted you could be here with us. Want to welcome you to the show. Welcome you also to Chicago. So there's a lot of new going on. I'll let Dave begin. It has some questions for you so that our audience can get to know you a bit better.
Sounds great, thanks.
Welcome, Ted. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
So to start, why don't you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your background?
Sure, yeah, be happy to. I have been working in Catholic higher education for almost 20 years now. I earned my doctorate in historical and systematic theology at Catholic University of America, where I wrote on the doctrine of the Trinity. And my wife has served for even longer than I have in parishes. So while I was writing my dissertation, my wife said, "Oh, the doctrine of the Trinity, great. That's third grade." And she shoved me into a third grade catechesis class. And from that moment on, felt really compelled not only to look at and understand the history of the church and its teachings and its beauty, but also the importance of bringing that to the life of our parish communities and to try to close the gap between the ivory tower of the university and the lived experience of the faith of so many people. So I worked then in the Archdiocese of Miami for about 10 years, teaching and administering programs at St. Thomas University. And then from 2014 until 2021, I served as the Dean of the Anangelo Newhoff School of Ministry at the University of Dallas. There we ran graduate programs, mostly for lay people who were pursuing careers in ministry or just seeking to grow in their faith. And at the same time, we ran programs in English and in Spanish at a non-credit level for catechetical formation, for people who wanted to do adult faith formation, but also throughout that period, work with the permanent diaconate. And in fact, I've been teaching classes and helping to run intellectual formation for the permanent diaconate since 2009. So it's been a passion of mine for a long time.
Great. And now what brings you to Chicago?
So I got a call from Father John Carchi, the rector of the seminary here at the University of St. Mary of the Lake, and from Brian Schmizik, Dr. Brian Schmizik, who was hired recently as the provost here. And they said that they were in the midst of the process of taking four separate institutes who've been serving the community here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, and looking at ways to bring them together so that we could have greater synergism and an even larger impact on the Archdiocese and beyond. So I arrived April 1st on Monday of Holy Week and started getting settled in. And we've been working really hard since then to get everything ready for the start of the new academic year, which begins today for us. So we're excited.
So what are some of the responsibilities you're in charge of?
So the four institutes that make up the school, or made up the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization, are the Institute for Pastoral Leadership, the Institute for Diaconal Studies, the Liturgical Institute, and the Instituto de Liderazgo Pastoral. So these programs ran in English and Spanish language, programs for lay leadership that led to certification to be a leader in a parish, catechetical coordinator program, initial formation for the permanent diaconate in both English and Spanish, and then a number of graduate programs in liturgy, in pastoral studies, and a Doctor of Ministry program. So I have oversight of all of those areas, again, in English and in Spanish, on site and online. And really, part of my mandate has been renewing our efforts to reach out to the Archdiocese, to let folks know that the University of St. Mary of the Lake Mundelein Seminary is closer than you think. We're doing things online. We seek to get out of our area and come to your parish or come to your home and have some interaction with you directly.
Ted, could you give us a sense of how many students or participants in each of those four separate programs historically, just roughly?
Yeah, well, we're structuring it a little different, so I've got the numbers organized slightly differently in my head. But currently we have 56 students in our graduate programs total. We have about 60 men, English and Spanish, in formation for the permanent diaconate. And we have about another 350 folks, or 300 to 350 in our lay ministry formation programs, or our parish programs that are available in the community.
And you mentioned one of your mandates is to kind of get out to the broader Archdiocese of Chicago and perhaps even beyond that. Is there capacity, either lay ministry or in the graduate program? Like what is that maximum capacity, or what's your hopes in terms of outreach ultimately?
We don't have any capacity issues at the moment. That's a problem I'd like to run into. Okay. In the end, we have existing seats in our graduate programs that we're able to expand, and we have the capacity to work. We try to work with parishes in particular, and also with the vicariates to be able to meet the needs of the local community. And so we've got lots of opportunities for growth and room for expansion. One of the advantages of the Archdiocese of Chicago is the wealth of academic resources that are in the area. There's a lot of great teachers that are here that we've been able to draw upon, both the faculty of the seminary who teach in many of our programs and form sort of the core of our work, and a huge number of people who work for the Archdiocese or work in our parishes who are also outstanding teachers.
You talked about coming together, and this is the first year of that. So how has it come together? How might a deacon candidate experience the program now than in prior years, or how might someone even in lay ministry experience the program differently than they may have in prior years?
So as we started, our first commitment was to focus on the operations side, so the back end of things, if you will, and that many of our students would experience a great deal of continuity in the program. So if you've gone through formation of the permanent diaconate, if you went through our MAPS program, then there's a great deal of consistency and continuity there. Where we've seen some of the differences and people might experience them, one is that we have integrated or in the process of a mutual integration, I think is a better way to articulate it, between our English language and Spanish language permanent diaconate program, and indeed kind of across all of our programs, so that the insights of what we're doing in Spanish language and what we're doing in the English language, that the program leads in those areas can learn from each other, and that there are opportunities for both language sets of language learners to meet together. So, for example, we had our new student orientation this past Saturday. We had about 50 folks come out to campus, join us for Mass, and we had a beginning orientation session that was designed for all of our programs, and then we broke out into smaller groups so that those who were in lay ministry or a graduate program or deacon formation met separately with the heads of their programs. That also allowed the opportunity for those who were working in Spanish to have further questions asked in the program. So earlier parts of it, the Mass and the presentation, were done in a bilingual fashion.
Okay.
Great.
And I guess how will these changes, are they linked to or enable the renewal that's going on in the Archdiocese of Chicago?
Well, so one of the things that we thought was really important, we know that the Archdiocese has gone through a tremendous amount of change over the last several years with the Renew My Church process, that consolidations and mergers of parishes are bringing communities together into contact with each other that maybe haven't been. And even prior to that, this is a reality that our church is facing in every diocese, in every parish. The reality that that we are a body with many parts, and that the communities that make up our parishes are distinct but not separate. And so that's a hard thing for us to practice and to get our arms around. So our goal is to help model that for the broader community in the way that we do our own action, but also to provide resources for parishes and for ministers to have a better sense of how do we pivot, how do we meet the needs of all of our parishioners, not just one group or another. If you'll let me go on for just a second longer. Sure. In my classes, I talk a great deal about what I call a ministry of personal preference. And what that means is that it's easiest to minister the way that we like to be ministered to. I've always been kind of an academic and enjoyed reading. And my first year of teaching high school, I was absolutely stunned that my high school students weren't thrilled to read Augustine's Confessions. And so that ministry of personal preference that I engaged in, trying to approach folks the way that I like to be approached, lo and behold, it wasn't real successful. So helping folks to be able to see that we've got a big church, and we need to be able to meet the needs of a wide range of people, not only in the ways that the Spirit speaks to us and from our own strengths, but to be able to learn and understand the needs of a big tent church, which is what we've got in our universal church.
That's great, Ted. When we come back from the break, I want to follow up and discuss more of this notion of ministry of personal preference, and then talk about what you see coming in years 2 and 3. there at the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization. So we'll be right back.
The cup that I must drink. Are you will?
Catholic Charities has had the privilege of helping people in need in Cook and Lake County for more than 100 years. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our frontline workers who, despite the unprecedented challenges of the past 2 years, continue to excel at their jobs every day. From the warehouse staff members who pack boxes of nutritious foods for low-income seniors, to the dedicated WIC employees who have remained open for families with children under the age of 5, to our volunteers and restaurant partners who ensure that meals are available for those experiencing hunger, to our service coordinators and our professional counselors who continue their vital work in innovative ways, to our food pantry staff, and to all those who work at Catholic Charities Call Center, finding solutions for every person who reaches out to us for help. Charity is at the heart of all you do, and we salute you.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit archchicago.org/findaschool.
At Catholic Charities, we want to remind you that we are here for anyone who is a victim of domestic violence or anyone who has a concern about someone they think may be a victim. Domestic violence affects millions of people each year, both women and men, of every race, religion, culture, and economic status. It includes physical, psychological, and emotional abuse, inflicted in both subtle and overt ways. The impact on children can be devastating. If you or someone you know are victims of domestic violence and you are looking for a place for healing and recovery, call us at 773-935-3434 in Cook County and 224-430-4977 in Lake County. A safer, happier tomorrow can begin today.
Welcome back to Diakonia. We were speaking with Ted Wampum, who's the Dean of the School of Parish Leadership and Evangelization. And before we left for the break, Ted was speaking about the ministry of personal preferences, which sounded a lot to me like love languages. So we want to teach people the way we like to learn, if I've got that right, Ted. It did raise for me the question is, and you've had wonderful experiences, and you're doing something new at University of St. Mary of the Lake. how do students want to learn, or how can we best teach adults, especially about faith and deepening their faith and having them share that faith with others?
Thanks. What a great question. That's at the heart of what we do in our programs here. Our students, whether they're in our non-credit parish programs or deacon formation or our graduate programs, are all working adults. They have 9-to-5 jobs, plus what they're doing with their family, plus their parishes. And so teaching folks like this is different than teaching adults is different than teaching elementary school or even college. One of the great things is the depth of experience that adult learners have to be able to draw upon and to bring into the classroom. It's such a privilege as a faculty member in the programs to be able to hear not only about the ideas of the history of the church or reading scripture, but the ways that these have impacted the lives of those who are in our programs. And that's a little different than with younger students who aren't yet able to draw the connections so easily between some of the theoretical discussions or historical discussions and the challenges of living the faith on a daily basis. The other thing in working with adults is, it's not our job to, help folks learn how to organize themselves or get to class on time. Those are the kinds of things that you may have to worry about in a high school classroom. But in an adult classroom, you've got a lot more freedom to be able to work with folks and help them to understand a common vision, a common goal of what we're trying to accomplish in the educational process. And finally, I'd say it makes a learning community, which is a central part of any classroom experience. It's not just, it differs from reading a book or watching a show in that you participate in the conversation. And you get to challenge each other, and there's a real richness that comes in that working with adult learners.
There's one additional question I was just going to ask. Certainly at our parishes, we're learning a lot and using technology more than we were before the pandemic. How are you leveraging, or will you continue to leverage technology through the various programs?
Absolutely. Yeah, the University of St. Mary of the Lake was a little late getting to online learning opportunities. And I think there are good reasons for that. We've seen coming out of the pandemic, both the advantages and disadvantages that come from just a different medium, right? The first and obvious advantage, especially in a place like the Archdiocese of Chicago, where we have challenges with distance, is the flexibility that it allows, right? I've told my faculty for a while that the day of snow days is gone, right? There may be that we don't come to campus, but there's no need to cancel the class completely when everyone or most folks have the opportunity to meet through a Zoom link. And in fact, those opportunities provide access to adult learners who have those demands on their times that wouldn't otherwise be available, right? So the idea of showing up for a class every week when you're working and you've got the kids that you've got to pick up from school and then you're supposed to write a paper and in the meantime you've got to sit in traffic for 45 minutes to an hour there and back. That becomes too big of an obstacle for many people to overcome. So we want to continue to expand and make online learning an opportunity that's available for people. At the same point in time, we know that there's something about being together in person that's a real advantage. And so having those opportunities, will remain committed to having in-person classes, formation opportunities on our campus that happen maybe not every week, but a few times a semester, so that you get the best of both worlds. We're also going to be looking into opportunities to leverage I don't know how else to describe it other than our kind of own social media platform that's connected with classes. So in Zoom, we all know that you can chat with one another while you're in a Zoom meeting. What I'd like to be able to do is create opportunities for our students to engage with each other like that, in the same way that you would during the class period during the break, but have it be something a little bit more along the lines of Facebook, where you can post something, post a question. It's a much smaller, more intimate community, but it gives the opportunity for that out of the classroom environment, and exchanges in a distance learning environment. So that's another idea that we're playing with and figuring out how to implement and see if our students are interested in it.
What are some other challenges that you're, looking at or facing as you move forward?
Yeah, I think, well, there's always lots of challenges and lots of opportunities. I think maybe that's the biggest thing, is that there are so many needs. There are so many opportunities. There's so much to be done. As the Archdiocese Catholic University, the responsibilities that come with that are significant. And so to be disciplined about what do we do first? Where do we need to have the biggest impact? How do we make certain that we're not putting more on our plate than we can manage? So I think as I look at it, that's one of the biggest challenges in the job is being disciplined and remaining focused on the big goals.
Prioritize,
absolutely. And then, as you know, one of the advantages that I've seen is that resources seems to be less of a problem than it would be in many other contexts. The resources seem to come when you've got the need. That there are people who tend to show up that say, yes, this is important enough that we need to prioritize it. I'll give my time to it, or I may not have time that I can give, but I'd be happy to make a donation to help out. So that resource piece, that happily is a secondary concern.
And just in the couple minutes we have left, turning to the diaconate formation program, are there, what do you foresee for that?
So we're going to continue moving along. So the big first step again is the mutual integration of the English language and Spanish language formation for the permanent diaconate. What do I mean by mutual integration? First, these programs have been in entirely separate organizational units. And so they develop their own history and own distinctiveness, which is good, right? Diversity in that regard gives us different approaches, different ideas. So in this first year, our leaders, Deacon Bob Puhala and Daniel Ramirez, will be looking at the two programs and looking at alignment at kind of the broad level. So the major stages of formation, the scrutinies, the liturgies, the standards for admission and for advancement to ordination. To be clear that since there's one order of the permanent diaconate in the Archdiocese of Chicago, we should be able to articulate clearly what those standards are for each of the major moments in the formation process throughout the life cycle of initial formation. And then I think the second piece will be that'll naturally lead to looking at the curriculum itself and say, are there places where we're, where we can learn from our brothers in the Spanish language diaconate program or from our brothers in the English language program? Are there things, practices that have been going on one area or the other that we can integrate? Or are there things that we can learn from other spots where, since the church has changed and continues to change, maybe we need to look at are we organized in the way that's best? And
Thank
so
you,
that'll be a
Ted.
process of asking those questions.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to working with you here in the Permanent Diaconate Office, because as you change, there will be some things that our attention and focus will change as well, so that there's a partnership, and that ongoing formation is something that's real both for our deacons and for our parish communities in the Archdiocese of Chicago. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for being with us. We wish you the best, and if there's certainly anything we can do to help and support you, we're here to do that.
Thanks, Ted.
Thanks so much, guys. It's been a blessing to work with you.
God bless.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.
For to sit at my right hand or at my left is not for me,